Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chiscool Gaming, and in today's video, sponsored by the makers of Civilization Heirs and Allies, I want to go in and review the new heroes in Season 2, because I actually just completed Season 2, so I've got a lot of experience with each of these heroes, either having them, retiring them, or fighting against them. And so for better or worse in some of those cases, where I'm on the receiving end of the pain, I can tell you about how each of these heroes performs. Now again, thank you to the makers of the game for sponsoring this video. If you haven't already downloaded the game, you can use the link in the description to go download. I'm having a good time playing, and I've also made videos about how to make every archetype of army: survival, damage control, and combo armies, including how to use these heroes. But let's go hero by hero, starting with Napoleon. Napoleon is an int control hero with a basic attack range of 4, and his unit type is ranged. If we get a look at his main skill, deal int damage affected by int to 2 enemy heroes one time, with a 50% chance to stun the targets for 1 turn. And if they're already stunned, you do damage to them. So we can see that his main skill here has a range of 5. It's big range. It's big damage on more than 1 target. He's got a great debuff coming from stun, and being stunned means you're unable to act for that turn. The only concern I have is that his main skill is an active skill, so you're going to need some synergy here to make this really pop off. But debuffs like Total Blockade that apply silence could shut him down, so you need to be on the lookout for that. Now we get a look at his retire skill. And his retire skill is Army's Finest. When all 3 heroes deployed are using different types of units, increasing gauge damage dealt by the captain, increasing gauge heal effect of the center, and reduce the engage attack damage taken by the vanguard. So from my perspective, this engage skill really requires you obviously to use an army that has all the different unit types in it, and I think it's a pretty decent boost to an engage style army. The healing boost, I guess that's kind of moderate, but the damage boost is nice. Yeah, I think that the damage portion is really solid. All right, so should you use Napoleon? Should you retire Napoleon? I think if you're going to run him as an int damage captain, he's very solid. His main skill and basic attack range is really solid, which is a part of why he can be a captain. The stun is insanely powerful. And his retirement skill is fine, but I would say first you'd use him as a hero, then you might retire him after you already have a copy of him up and running, contributing in an army. And for what it's worth, Napoleon's titled promotion, all right, we can go all the way up here, makes it so you increase the chance of the main skill inflicting stun by 20%. So what is that, like a 70% chance to stun now? And you increase the trigger rate of the main skill. Seems pretty good. I would rate Napoleon as being a very strong contributor. Again, though, you're looking really to build an army around him with him as the captain. All right. Now this brings us to Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth is an int-based buffing hero. She has a basic attack range of 2, which is very small, and her unit type is ranged. When we look at her main skill, you can see that at the start of each turn, bond with 1 random enemy and ally hero. When forming a bond with an ally hero, reduce own and allies' combat damage taken, and whenever either recovers troops, the other has a 70% chance to recover troops as well. And when forming this bond with the enemy, they share in own damage taken until the end of the turn, which is pretty savage. We can see that her main skill has a pretty solid range of 4, which means, like, she probably is serving as a vanguard, maybe a center, probably not a captain. Very clearly from this, she's designed to be a part of a survival army, mitigating damage and doing healing. And the shared damage with the enemy is also pretty interesting, because if the enemy starts hitting you with a ton of damage and you have sustained but they don't, dude, that damage reflect is a pretty cool capability. And I have been using her in my survival team this season. I've been pretty happy with the result versus the Pericles-based team. Not so good against the combo armies, but she is versatile as a vanguard, all right? And we get a look at her retire skill. Her retire skill makes it so that you deal int damage rate of 40% to 2 enemy heroes one time, and scorch affected by Int, the target for 2 turns. If the target's already affected by Scorch, then for 2 turns, during this period, you've got a chance of making them take Int damage. So I think that this is a pretty solid skill for applying damage over time. Honestly, I'd say this is a good skill to cannibalize because I think its strength is there, except that she's just too good in most of the lineups where you'd want to use her. So she's useful in both PvE and PvP if you use her correctly. So I think she's strong and versatile, not likely to want to cannibalize her for this skill, even though it's good. This brings us to Sandana, who is a attack control hero, basic attack range of 3, and unit type is calves. The engage skill is the main skill. When allies successfully use an active skill, you have a chance to silence or disarm a random enemy for 1 turn. So you can see the synergy here is really powerful. I covered this in my damage control video, where you can use them as a part of an army that is trying to make your active skills happen more frequently, and also take advantage of when active skills happen. If the target's already silenced or disarmed, by the way, then you deal damage to them 1 time instead. Very powerful. This is an amazing engage skill. It's got debuffs. Being able to apply silence and disarm can be very useful, especially it can happen kind of at any point in the fight. The weakness here is if your team is blocked by or debuffed by total blockade, which silences you, you're not going to trigger your active skills. So this can get shut down. And his promotion from the title is actually very good as well. Increase the trigger rate of the main skill by 20%. So on top of what was it, 70% over here? Yes, when maxed out, 70% chance to silence or disarm, you get another 20% on top of that. So when you use an active skill, 90% chance to silence or disarm. Seems good. With a range of 5 on this skill, I think that you can use him as in the captain slot with a damage or control army, and in a damage army that evolves around triggering active skills faster. He's really going to sing. Now, his retirement skill is incredibly powerful, Brains and Brawn. I've talked about this so much in so many videos. I don't know if I need to reread it now, but what you should do instead of retiring him is retire Akechi from Season 1 to acquire this skill. Do not retire Sandana. He's very, very good. Retire Akechi instead. And on the topic of retiring, okay, this next one is like an insta retire. And that is because Rayu's retire skill is disgusting. I'm ahead of myself though. Let's talk about this a little bit first. So he is an int guardian. He's got a basic attack range of 2, which is really small, and his unit type is ranged. And the long story short is you're really just going to retire him for the city garrison skill. That's what I did when I pulled him. Money where my mouth is. But the main skill, just to review it, gives you counter tactics. When you're hit by a basic, deal int damage to the attacker 1 time. There's also a chance to reduce the next combat damage taken by a random ally hero by a percentage. And, you know, we can see here his range is very, very low. He's similar to other vanguards that deal attack damage back to the enemy after receiving a basic attack, but he's doing int-based damage instead. And I think it would work in any damage that scales off of having a decent vanguard, although I think there's like better options like Mark Anthony. It is worth mentioning that with his title promotion, you can reach further. So you can increase your range by 1, which is, you know, pretty nice. But, you know, look, at the end of the day, you take City Garrison, okay? The skill is so busted. It's used by most meta armies, especially the Pericles, Cleo, Mark Anthony army, which is very powerful. With this skill, your Vanguard can apply Protect to your allies, making your Vanguard take the enemy's basic attacks, and it gives a chance to grant damage immunity with evasion, and you have a chance to heal when hit with basic attacks. I mean, this is a must-grab for any damage scaling army that works around taking basic attacks and dealing attack damage back to enemies. City Garrison is such a powerful skill. One of the best, if not the best, retire skill in the game. So, rip Rayu, retire him for City Garrison. and I don't think you're going to look back. This brings us to Cyrus the Great, who's classified as a Guardian because of his high defense stat. Basic attack range of 2. Unit type is infantry. His main skill, elephant riding conqueror. When army size falls below certain percentages of their initial size, reduce combat damage taken. 2 ally heroes have a chance to gain elephant riding for a couple turns, during which combat, attack, and int increase, affected by Cyrus's defense and quantity of negative status effects inflicted on him. And all negative combat status effects on them are erased. So we can see he kind of works around reducing your army's damage taken throughout the course of the fight. He also can apply elephant riding to 2 allies for 2 turns to remove debuffs, which is pretty nice. And he's got decent in stats for a Guardian. So what should you do with Cyrus? Preferably he would work in an army setup where you're trying to take less damage and have a chance to remove your army's debuffs. Probably good with an int damage army or int survival army. And with his title promotion, you can increase the chance of the main skill gaining elephant riding by 30%, which can guarantee the debuff removal. The retire skill, on the other hand, is a good bit more simple. After using a basic attack, deal attack damage to the target 1 time and inflict heal block on them for 1 turn. So this is Daunting Charge. Disrupting healing is actually very powerful and can shut down some army combinations. It's pretty useful in a combo captain or combo center type hero. And obviously, if you're dealing with healers, like, this is just completely insane. But from what I saw, he wasn't used much in the meta. I mean, it could just be the people we were playing with didn't use him, but I'd recommend getting this skill if you already have a decent combo attack army that you want to slot it into. Let's move on to the next hero. It's Nebuchadnezzar. Here we've got an attack hero. His basic attack range is 3, type is infantry, and we've got a passive skill here. This is the main skill. Increase own passive crit rate and passive crit damage. When you fail to use an active skill, increase the trigger rate of your active skill damage and combat damage dealt by the next active skill. Deal damage or int damage. It's either attack or int, depending on which of your own stats is higher. 1 time to 1 random enemy within a range of 5. Oh my god, this skill's so long. Damage effect triggers up to 2 times each turn. So we can see, like, the gimmick is right at the top. It's crit rate, crit damage enhancement. And since his main skill can deal damage with a range of 5, you could theoretically be slotting him in as the captain. So where should you use him? I think in an active skill damage-based army, since he evolves around your team using active skills. And what's weird is that he's an attack hero, but he can deal int damage if you micro those stats appropriately. And I didn't see him being used much in the current season. I think there's just better options to use, to be honest. Which brings us to the retire skill. The retire skill makes it so that during the first 3 turns, reduce engage int damage dealt by all units, and increase engage attack damage dealt of all allies, range of 1. So I think this is useful in armies that are in the current season, some of the meta armies like Pericles or an attack combo army. I think you could see Foolhardy Courage being used. And if you're fighting into an engage int enemy, this is where this really shines, as you're mainly doing attack damage heroes in that army. I would suggest retiring him if you're using either a Pericles style damage scaling army or an attack combo style army. That's when you probably want to grab this skill. Which brings us to, I believe this was the first Season 2 hero I picked up, and I can show her to you from my collection, and that is Gudet. Scroll down over here. In lore, I don't know if it's pronounced Yodet or Gudet, I guess depending on where you look. But she's classified as an int buff hero, range of 3 with the unit type infantry. She was, okay, I'm reading my notes now. She was the first Season 2 hero I pulled. from my deity pulls. And I did 25 of them, and I highlighted that in a short. Anyways, she's got an engage skill. At the start of each turn, 1 to 2 allies have a 100% chance of gaining the following. Increase the combat trigger rate of active skills by 15%. Active damage skill, when an active skill damage is triggered, if the enemy captain is within the skill's range, increase combat damage dealt by the skill for the current instance by 20%. Otherwise, add 1 to the skill range. We got a captain sniping skill here. This effect is cleared at the end of each turn. Also reduce trigger rate by 10% for the following turn. So she's a great choice if you want to trigger your active skills faster, which I covered in probably yesterday's video at the time that this goes live in a active skill synergy army. She's got decent defense stats for an int buff type hero for what it's worth. And her title promotion also is noteworthy. This is going to make it so that her main skill now affects 2 allies. So where would you want to use her? With any active skill synergy army, since she increases your active skill triggers, which is like, obviously. Preferably in the center slot. I think she's got enough defense to work in the vanguard position as well, though. So she's got a little bit of versatility there. When we get a look at her retire skill, Unexpected Counter. When 2 allies deal damage, there's a 50% chance to increase combat damage taken by the target. This effect stacks up to 5 times. This is one of the best skills to put into a damage scaling army. So remember, I keep talking about this control and damage video that I made. I'll have a card in the end screen in just a second here. You can go watch it. But there's 3 army archetypes I've seen that go into this like damage and control strategy. One is pure damage and control. The other is active skill synergy, okay, which the prior hero is really good in. And then the other is in a scaling synergy, where like what you do scales based off of doing lots of basic attacks or counter attacks to an enemy. And so I think this would be really good in a damage scaling army. Pericles as an example. This has got to be like a best in slot skill for the Pericles, Cleo, Mark Antony skill. You also could use this on other heroes with a high agi rating, like Saladin will be another really good pick in a combo army. I mean, I think she's really strong overall, and I'd prefer to keep her if you don't have another copy or a Joan of Arc. But once you get multiple copies of her, or you get your hands on Joan, then you might want to just retire her for the skill at that point, right? Now, I've just wrapped up Season 2. It's been a good season. I am a part of the Alliance that will be holding the center at the end, which is really nice. So I'm looking forward to doing some more deity pulls in the next season. You want to see that, subscribe. You want to see some, let's go with, I mean, gosh, I have 3 videos. You should watch them all, but I'll have combo armies up on the screen and the damage control armies off to the side. Big thank you again to the makers of Civilization, Eras, and Allies for sponsoring this video. And until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies. Take care, everybody.